It's summertime, and that means millions of people will be flocking to the beaches for sun and fun. But not me. I have a deathly fear of toothy monstrosities eating me feet first from beneath the water. That's right, sharks scare the shit out of me. This summer has a few shark horror films coming down the pike. One in particular that is near and dear to me that I might be able to talk about very soon. The first two shark films out of the depths are The REQUIN and Sharkbait. So hold your breath, we're diving deep into these two sharky horrors. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. The REQUIN, aka From Below, is new streaming on Hulu. It's directed and written by Le-Van Kiet. Married couple Jalen, Clueless's Alicia Silverstone, and Kyle, Pretty Little Lies' James Tupper, go on an exotic vacation to Vietnam. Having lost their first child during labor, the couple are on the mend and hope renting a cabana that basically floats on top of the water will give them a moment of peace and time to heal. Unfortunately, a hurricane batters the coastline, knocking the cabana off its supports and sending it, with Jalen and Kyle in tow, into the middle of the ocean. As the couple attempt to find land and signal ships in the distance, the floating cabin comes apart, and to make matters worse, the sharks begin circling. I'm going to say this right from the beginning. The REQUIN is the worst movie I've seen this year. And I've seen some very bad movies. Just when you thought Morbius was the worst it can get, the REQUIN sidles up and knocks Jared Leto on his pretentious ass. That said, the REQUIN gets so ridiculous that it almost becomes big dumb fun by the time it ends. Almost. So for those who don't know, the REQUIN is French for shark. Why does a film set in Vietnam use a French term for its title? Not sure. But that's what they call it. Never once is the French term used in the movie, and I don't know why they didn't call the film whatever the Vietnam term is for shark. Even though that's pretty dumb right there, this turns out to be the least dumbest thing about the REQUIN. Alicia Silverstone has had it rough. She was made popular from a specific film and never really achieved much else after that. Of course, I'm talking about Clueless, not Batman and Robin. Other than a role that is only slightly bigger than a cameo in The Lodge, I haven't seen her on screen in ages. Not that I'd be against a comeback or a role that goes against type for her. But man, is the REQUIN not the movie that will put her back on the map. She's awful in this film. There is an early scene where Jalen freaks out at the sight of blood that is absolutely painful to watch. Later, when the house turns into an unintentional boat, her dialogue is basically reduced to grunts, groans, screeches, and screams, all of which prove to be utterly painful to listen to. Her winces in pain, struggle, and frustration have all the gravitas of a child being forced to eat their peas before leaving the dinner table. Her character is pampered and self-centered, so much so that she forgets about her wounded husband on more than one occasion. There's a scene where a shark wounds her husband. Instead of attempting to tourniquet his wounds with shreds of her shirt, Jalen lets the wound bleed freely. But in the very next scene, when Jalen herself is bitten by a shark, she doesn't hesitate to tear a strip from her shirt to bandage her own wound. While everyone in here is going for gold in the REQUIN, neither Silverstone nor Tupper deliver performances better than laughably bad. They make bonehead decisions all the way through, like lighting a fire on a floating wooden cabin in the middle of the ocean, and constantly leaping into shark-infested waters rather than staying on a secure raft. There's an attempt for thematic heft with the death of a child, but you've got me as to how it relates to the couple's battle with the shark. All I know is that the two seem to be really good at conveniently passing out at the same time. While this may be understandable to happen once, the couple pass out about 5 to 6 times throughout the film, returning to the well way too often because the screenwriter didn't seem to have anything else for them to do. And don't get me started about the sharks, or lack thereof. Though a giant toothy monster is featured prominently on the poster, don't expect to see even a shark's fin until the 59-minute mark of the REQUIN. For the last half hour, the sharks appear sporadically, culminating in the most ridiculous climax I have ever seen in a shark movie. And I've seen all the Sharknadoes. For some reason, smaller sharks have been pursuing Jalen and Kyle, after they show up at the 59-minute mark, that is. But for the climax, only one giant shark that is a skosh smaller than a megalodon becomes the sole predator. Add in some shoddy CGI and some obvious stock footage of the sharks, and you've got one stinker of a shark flicks, my friends. I thought the bigger name cast would elevate the REQUIN above your typical shark throwaway, but with a terribly uninspired script paired with a horrible lead performance by Silverstone, I found myself thoroughly and utterly disappointed. Our second toothy feature is Sharkbait. It's new on demand and digital download from Vertical Entertainment. It's directed by James Nunn and written by Nick Saltrese. A group of rowdy tourists on spring break head to Mexico for a lot of drinking, drugging, sexing, and overall partying. On the last day of the trip, they get the bright idea to steal a pair of jet skis and have one last adventure before heading home. When they wreck their jet skis into one another and one of them suffers a broken leg, they find themselves stranded in the middle of the ocean with an angry and hungry shark eager to snack on some ugly Americans. From pretty much the instant I was introduced to the cast of Sharkbait, I wanted them to be eaten by sharks. There really was no attention to character. Instead, each tourist has one annoying or abhorrible trait worse than the last. Other than the lead gal Nat, played by Holly Earl, the rest of the crew are awful people who look down on homeless people, steal things that aren't theirs and act like it's totally okay, and lie and cheat on one another like the word commitment is a capital offense. Nat's friends are so bad that it makes one wonder why the hell she's hanging around with them in the first place, since they're so different than her. On top of that, Nat is whiny and meek one second, and empowered and self-sufficient when the story deems it necessary. So even our final girl doesn't have a good handling of her own character. These actors aren't terrible. Maybe we'll see them in something bigger and better in the future, but with a script like this where Nat gives herself a pep talk by telling her, "Come on, I'm a Kansas girl," they really had no chance. While the kids are good looking, they really have nothing interesting to do or say other than decide who dies and in what order that happens. Still, once the first 20 or so minutes of getting to know you time with these awful people is over and the shark action begins, Sharkbait actually turns into a decent movie. There are quite a few shocks and jumps that made this sharkophobe pull his knees up to his chin more than once. Director James Nunn provides some well-timed scares that totally had its way with my darkest fears. For the most part, the CG shark looks good and is given a lot of different things to do as it circles, stalks, and pops out of the water to nibble down the cast. Though I was really rooting for the entire cast to be the main course for the shark as fast as possible, I found myself jumping, cheering, and applauding the wonderfully realized action and horror sequences that Sharkbait had to offer. Shark films really aren't that hard to make. Get your cast into the water, trap them there, cut off communication to the mainland, and then have the sharks eat the people a couple of times. That's about all you need to make a shark movie. All of this was done capably in Sharkbait. It may not be the smartest of scripts or most likable of casts, but it succeeds where it counts on being a basic and potent little shark film. Expect dumb moves and even dumber dialogue from unlikable people with Sharkbait, but once the shark starts biting, the film takes a sharp turn for the better and continues the suspense and action all the way to the end.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're